Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Payson. Welcome back to everyone who is already a subscriber to the channel. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe so you can see more great interviews, including the one coming at you right now. Always an honor to have a champion in MMA on the show. We have a brand new, newly crowned amateur MMA champ coming on the show. Very happy to welcome back Noah Ace Kiszka. Champ, welcome back to the show.
What's up, Luke? It's certainly good to be back.
Well, it's always great to be able to say, the champ is here. The champ is here. So I really appreciate you coming on. You, as people might not remember, need to go back just a little bit last week and get the great interview you did. You squeezed us in and did an interview while you were doing the weight cut and all that. Just a couple, I think it was 2 days before your title fight for Stellar Fights. You got the belt over your shoulder now. It ended up being a super great day for you. Not only did you win the belt, you won it in the first round. But before we get to the fight itself, talk a little bit about, I've actually had fighters fight for Stellar Fight before when I ran Pursuit MMA just outside of Philadelphia. So I got down to Delaware. But talk a little about the promotion, kind of what was the setup like? What did it feel like building up to your fight before we get to the one-round fight, since you made it such quick work of it?
So it was actually my first time fighting for Stellar. I had cornered a few times and definitely attended some shows for our guys. That's one of the more common promotions you'll see Bowerhouse fighters in, just because of the proximity. As far as like the location for Stellar, I love it. It's super close to the beach, Ocean City and Bethany, depending on which one you're going to. So, you can kind of turn it into a little weekend trip if you want. So, it was a great weekend, and the location's great. The only thing I would change about Stellar is wearing the shin guards, just because I'm not a big shin guard guy.
Yeah, I saw that in the photos. Obviously, we'll get to how you won. It's super exciting, super great. But I did see that, and every state has different rules. I'm used to the Pennsylvania ones, but every state has different rules. Was it what we would call advanced amateur, where you had ground and pound with closed fists? Like, what were the ground rules?
So Delaware is pretty much just one size fits all with amateur rules. It's just its head kicks are allowed, pretty much everything except for elbows and knees. And then you wear the shin guards, and that's all it was. And then it was 5 3 rounds. You're supposed to be five 3-minute rounds is what.
And is that what everybody does, or is that because it was a title fight?
No, that was just because it was a title fight. Everyone does 3 3s in Delaware,
Sure.
But title fights do 5 3s.
Wow. I mean, so let's talk. Obviously, I didn't know that coming into the fight last week when we talked. What was it like training for a 5-rounder? Did that make a lot of difference in how you prepared and cardio, or are you also kind of at that level where to you that really didn't make a big difference?
I like to train like a professional. This is my goal, to be a professional. So anytime I'm sparring, it's usually 5-minute rounds. Anytime I'm rolling, it's usually more than 5-minute rounds, because we have professional jiu-jitsu athletes here. So it's the training didn't really change. I would say I was a lot more just dedicated. Like this camp, like I lost that fight, my last fight, so I was super just focused on just putting my all into my training, and I showed up every single day, and I just worked as hard as I could. And that's typical for me, though. So it's any fight is going to be like that.
Well, it's a great mindset. Bowerhouse MMA. We've talked to you. I've talked to Raiden. I'm going to have Raiden on later tonight, and I'm sure several other people. Cody Matthews has come on, and it's really awesome. Your coach Rob reaches out to me and kind of fills me in, and I love representing. I love being able to get fighters that are a little bit farther away. Of course, I bump into you guys when you've come over to 247 to the Pittsburgh area, but I do think that's what's cool about regional MMA. It goes everywhere. You guys are more Virginia based, so super cool. Well, break down the fight itself. You were fighting a tough opponent. Obviously, it was a title fight for a reason, and so you ended up getting it done in round 1. So kind of talk us through the fight.
The fight itself, pretty short. It took a minute and a half. I went out, I threw a combination, and I faked a shot, and he completely sprawled, and I think at that point I knew I could take him down. He knew I was gonna try to take him down. I took him down and ended up taking his back, and then within seconds of taking his back, I threw an armbar up, the same basic armbar that we teach our kids here. It's our system. It's just things that we drill every single day. So I got in a position that I'm the most comfortable in, and I finished the fight. Actually, though, I do want to give credit to my coaching staff because they were watching a lot of film on this guy. Obviously it's a big fight. You want to be prepared. And they noticed a bad habit he had of going for a switch right off a shot and stopping. And they said that would be the perfect time to take his back and finish the fight. Lo and behold, first minute into it, he did it. And, we got the job done. So definitely shout out my coaching staff on that one.
Well, it's always great to give credit to the prep team, coaches, staff, the most important. And then also along with coaching, your sparring partners, I know, because you're always talking everybody that goes into a fight. It looks like a one man versus one man in there, but there's really a whole lot that goes into it. Always great to remember. And I think this is not just the game of fighting, but also the game of life it's you got to have knowledge. You got to know what to do with the information that you have. And so coaches being able to see a pattern like that, be able to teach it to you, and then also you to be able to implement it. It is really a well-oiled machine when it all works out well. Putting an armbar on from the back may be something that you teach your kids at Bowerhouse MMA, but I would say for most people obviously it's something that BJJ practitioners hit, but I would consider it maybe a little bit more of a unique entry than most of the time, from teaching and also just from watch a lot of MMA. Generally speaking, what happens is people, and it's a good move, but people go for either punching the ear sides, punching each ear hole, or the rear naked choke from the back. So really, really cool that you guys are able to work into an armbar. The question that we always ask when it comes to a submission, other than TKOs are a little bit different, but with the submission, is it something that once you get into that position and throw it on that he's going to tap, or do you have, like, for example, I've often taught with a leg triangle, if you're on your back throwing up the triangle, if you're not finishing it, you can use it as a sweep. There's a nice sweep from there. Do you often kind of chain things together, or are you pretty confident that you were going to get the tap, or was there a bailout, go into a side control or something from there?
So it's funny. We actually pride ourselves on our arm bars here. It sounds funny to say, but that really is our specialty. I'm very well versed in a lot of the techniques that my coach Chris Bauer teaches. I'm in his classes every day, so that position, I know if I can get someone to that position, I can finish the armbar. He has grip break sequences. He has different ways to maneuver and manipulate their hands to break the grip. So yeah, I think even if I get on anyone's back, not even just in an armbar situation, I'm pretty solid, and I'm more than likely going to finish it.
Well, that goes with all the work you and, of course, your coach. The gym's named after him with Bowerhouse MMA, so that's pretty fantastic. That's where the confidence comes in. I talk to a lot of guys in the Pittsburgh area. There's some great Pittsburgh gyms. Obviously, you represent very well for Bowerhouse, and I think that's the thing. What you learn and being able to apply it is really what matters. So now that you're the champ, and I think you're now 4-1, right? Your record is now 4-1.
5-1.
5-1. Okay, because I knew you had picked up that one split decision loss, and winning by finishes hopefully takes away that sting a little bit of losing by a split decision. But like we talked about when you were coming on in Fight Week, if there's a way to lose and at least feel like you did that, you did a part to win, it's a split decision. They stink, but at least you showed that you competed with the best when you did that. But now that you're the champ, I'm curious, because I believe Brad Dalton still runs Stellar Fights.
He does. Yep. Brad.
Yeah, great guy. Brad's great guy. So is there an expectation? I know every promoter does it differently, and this is obviously no beef between any promotions, but is there an expectation that you come back to defend? I know sometimes regional amateur MMA want their amateur champs to come back and defend. Is that the plan, or is it pro, or is it fight another 5 times? I don't know. It's up to you. I'm just curious.
As far as Stellar Fights, I loved the promotion. I loved Brad. He was super easy to work with, and they put on a great show. Unfortunately, though, I don't know what my next move is, but I know I won't be in shin guards, and I
Oh,
probably won't be doing. If I do another amateur fight, it will likely be in Virginia due to the pro rule set.
sure.
But my coach is in Vegas right now, and when he gets back, I'll have a meeting with my whole coaching staff as a group, and we'll decide what's next for me. But yeah, probably not stellar anymore though.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And obviously, I'm glad you were able to give credit to Brad Dalton. He's a great guy, and best wishes to everybody at Stellar Fights. Talk a little bit, since you've mentioned it a few times. And obviously, this is not, I know every once in a while I talk so much Pennsylvania rules that people are like, hey, the novice rules are so restrictive. Well, that's not the promotion's decision. You have to work within the state. But what do you think, to you? What's the main concern about shin pads? Is it submission on the ground that you think is clunky? Like, what's finishing an armbar with shin pads, for people that don't know? It does get a little trickier. It's a little bit more space typically, because it's a little harder. But what were your thoughts on the main drawback of shin pads?
I don't hate it for newer guys, newer amateurs. I think it's very smart to put them in shin pads. They can fight more often. You don't have as many like brutal head kick knockouts and stuff. But that's also why I want to be, out of the shin guards. I've only fought in shin guards twice, and I didn't like it either time, just because I feel like I don't think it's real for me. I think it's great for the guys just starting out, but I think for me, I need to feel the danger of like him kicking me in the head, like bare shin. I need to, I need to like just feel that. I think it makes me more like loose, and yeah, I don't know how to describe it, man. It's just shin guards throw me off a little bit.
Well, champ, that makes perfect sense. I often, when I do broadcasting for 247 Fighting Championships, I often have to point out, because the rule set in Pennsylvania, there's three rule sets: novice, advanced, and pro. And with the advanced, there's no shin guards. And so a lot of people in the audience, and probably the viewing audience, it looks pro, like when you look at it, but then I have to point out, no elbows, no knees. They don't allow head kicks. And then, of course, ground and pound is allowed, but not with elbows, just with punches. And I always point that out, because you're right. Like, to some degree, the shin pads, not only to you as a fighter, make a difference, but also to the watchers. I think no shin pads feels more pro. Now, I'm actually not a big fan of brand new 0-0 amateur fighters. I've actually warned fighters off the air, not recorded, that, Commonwealth of Virginia, I think it's another Commonwealth, but the state of Virginia allows, like, their amateur rules are pro. At your level, it makes sense. But what are your thoughts on that? Have you fought lower? Because to me, it's a bit of a risk for a debut guy, or a guy that's, pretty new to the sport, to be able to have full rule sets. That's head kicks, knees. Probably knees are even more dangerous for a wrestler. We can sometimes mistime that. Just ask Ben Askren. But what is your thought on it being a pro rule set right off the jump? You think that's okay? You like it for more advanced? Obviously, nobody has to fight in Virginia, but for people that don't know, there's really only one rule set in Virginia.
So I think it's good for the promotion, because they get some crazy knockouts and stuff. But personally, for the fighters, like, I wouldn't want one of my teammates going in 0-0 and fighting under a Virginia rule set. But yeah, I mean, once you get to like 3 or 4 fights, you kind of got to have that talk with yourself. It's like, are we in this to be a pro, or are we in this to like just do it for right now? And if you're in that pro mindset, then you should find the rule set that's probably more closer to your goals. But yeah, man, I fought in Virginia twice. Some dudes get knocked the hell out in there. Sorry, excuse my language.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. And it can be, and while knockouts are great and entertaining, obviously MMA, it's part of the sport. My only concern, having seen some of it, and obviously it's nobody's fault. It's the rule set. I mean, that's the way the commissioner is. I think if it's inexperienced, if it's somebody who's never been in a Muay Thai clinch and they duck out, which is like the number one rule you do not do, somebody grabs you, Muay Thai clinch, you actually posture up and have some other options. But a lot of times, as you know from sparring, that's like number one rule. Somebody puts their head down, hey, be careful. But in, like, obviously pro rule set, that's a kind of a free knockout just waiting to happen. And those are the type of knockouts I think if you're still inexperienced in the training side of things, that's that's one of the things to be careful of. But obviously, we're gonna wait. We're gonna have you back on once you announce your next fight, whether that fight is you going pro, which would make sense, whether that fight is you fighting for an amateur belt somewhere in Virginia with a pro rule set, which would also make sense. Whatever it is, It's just always great to have you back on. I've been able to follow you now, kind of on and off through your whole career, and I can't wait to continue to follow you through your, whatever's next, particularly as you transition to pro, whenever that is, because it is based on your coaches. So I really appreciate you coming on. Let's do this though. To ramp up, what was, and I'm sure it's hard to describe, but what was the feeling like because it does matter. What does the feeling like to be called champ, get the belt? Is it to you just any other fight, or does it feel a little bit extra special, which I think is part of it?
I think it was going to be it's special, and it always will be because it's my first belt. And it was cool for the first 2 days, but it's gonna get a lot harder, So I got to be prepared for that, and it's not dependable of what my career is going to be. So yeah, it was awesome to win the belt and be a champ right now, but I'm on to what's next for me because it's gonna get hard, and I got to be ready for sure.
Well, that makes perfect sense, and I appreciate you, champ, bringing the belt on. I requested. People don't need to say that you wanted to bring it on. I think it would have been fine if you wanted to, but I requested you bring it on. I think it's cool to have champs bring the belt on. But you've got a great point. You're not worried about the belt you just won now. You're worried about the next one and what's for the future. So I really appreciate it. Hats off to you and to your entire team as a little bit of a bait for the next one, a little bit of a preview. I'm going to have Raiden. I always forget his Caracas.
Kovacs.
Oh, see, now I'll get it right. Kovacs, and he's pro now out in Vegas. So the Bowerhouse team is really rising up. I often think about that. The talent continues to raise. So really appreciate you coming on. You've been listening to Luke Basin with MMA Fancast with the brand new Stellar Fights amateur champion of the world, Noah Ace Kiszka. Thanks so much for coming on, champ. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Luke. Have a great night, man.
Got it, brother. You too.